You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Sean Wilkie, and along with my awesome co host, we interview the innovators in this space. Ivan, please go ahead and get us started.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Maria Morgan. Maria joined the veterinary field in 1997 as a receptionist and veterinary assistant, working at her uncle's practice where her mother was the practice manager. As a young teenager, she was initially unaware of the true scope of the job beyond the appealing prospect of playing with puppies. That's kind of the story of all of us. She graduated from Cal Poly Pomona with a bachelor's in business administration and earned her MBA from Chapman University in 2008 and obtained her veterinary practice manager certification from the VHMA in 2020. Driven by an entrepreneurial spirit, she became a co-owner of a companion animal general practice in Orange County, California in 2014, successfully expanding it from single doctor practice to a five-doctor practice. In June 2024, Maria had the remarkable opportunity to co-found Passpaw with Marina Salmon and Trellis Ventures. Maria, welcome to the show. Thank you for finding the time.
Thank you for having me.
What is the Passpaw? What do you guys do? And what it is all about?
So, Passpaw is a workflow management software. It is about trying to manage the whole cumbersome international health certificate workflow that many of our practices have to deal with. So, when pet parents are traveling with their pets, they've got to go through this process of getting special paperwork to export their pet into that country where they're planning to travel to. And so there's paperwork that is required for that. There's examinations that's required. Oftentimes there's treatments that are required. Some countries may require a rabies serology test or vaccinations. And so it can become quite a lengthy process, a complicated process. And that's what we're trying to help practices handle. Just take away that administrative burden so they can focus on their patients, their clients, and we can handle all of that messy stuff because there's regulations they can change. And so that's what Passpaw's there to do.
Super interesting. I mean, we're living in such a dynamic and interesting world when it comes to traveling all of a sudden. And so I guess I'd love to talk a little bit about that. But I think the first question that comes to mind is how in the heck, I mean, obviously you have the background in veterinary medicine, but how in the heck did you find yourself running this company? What was the kind of origin story?
So the origin story is actually I was actually trying to cut back in practice.
I don't know that it worked.
It did not.
Yeah, becoming an entrepreneur is not cutting back on anything. I don't know if you figured it out since June 2024, but
I have. And I think, yeah, I guess you can't keep me down. I love what I do. I love my field and our industry. And so that's kind of how it started. So we hired a fantastic practice manager. I was just trying to cut back a little bit to be more available for my kids. So that was really the motivation. And so one time Marina's my friend, and one time I did have to fill in and help the practice with a health certificate. So she was with me at the time, and it was around the holidays. So it was December, November before. And I basically how it started is I had to help them, and I was calling. I kept calling. Okay, I need you to send me this. I need to get this. For some reason, I think I have remote access, but I needed things that I didn't have access to. And so I was doing this, and the whole time, I'm saying to myself, okay, this could be a software. It's easier to apply for a car loan on an app. I was like, why is this so complicated? And anyway, I get through the process. And at the end of that, she's like, okay, so tell me exactly what just happened. And I walk through it, and she's an engineer. She's like, oh, yeah, that can totally all be turned into a workflow with a software. And so I was just saying that because, I was frustrated with the situation, but she was the one who kind of put those pieces together. And then we started exploring. She came into the practice, saw us do more. We do a lot of these in our practice. Last year we did close to 200. So it's a service we've grown over the last few years, especially during COVID. So that's kind of how it happened. It was just, I love traveling. I love talking to pet parents about their travels. And so it's never been a service that bothered me, but I know that it bothered a lot of other practices because they were referring them to me. So that's kind of how it started, the short and long.
Yeah, that says most innovations come from frustration. So I like that you're solving the issue that you faced and kind of have hands on. The question that I have is because this is a software startup, but there is a component where the clients need to find you, and potentially there's also the physical component. So you would have to be either the blood samples drawn or a particular vaccine administered. By the way, just a bookmark. It's like pretty much it's like almost like a virtual travel clinic, right? Because they have that for humans, right? And then I remember when I was going to Russia 20 years ago or something to build a lab there, I had to get all of these crazy vaccines that I didn't know that you should have by going there. So how do you deal with the physical component? Do you collaborate with the clinics in a different jurisdictions and you take care of the paperwork? Tell us a little more about how does that handle?
Certainly. So when we launched the way we saw it was partnering with the practice. So bringing to them that travel consultancy, but of course using software to help us. So that's how it started. We've been reaching out to practices to partner with them in that. So we're not trying to work with the public to get the end user or the pet parent that's traveling, but rather go to the practices who are offering the service and partner with them to make that process way less burdensome. And then we keep track of all the requirements, all of what they need to do so they don't have to worry about training their teams. We've made it just chunked it out into like bite-sized pieces so any team member can help with the process. So that was the other thing. It was intended that you can have all the team members involved in the process of preparing a pet for travel.
Super cool. So you're helping practices that have a pain like you had, but you're also helping practices potentially that don't do this right now. They send it down the street to practices like yours because it's a pain, grab more revenue. Would that be appropriate?
That is absolutely right. Yes. I noticed that was what was happening. And I was trying to tell people, no, this is good revenue. Try to keep it in house. But yeah, so the other thing that what we provide to the practices is that client engagement. So there's really no transparency in the process other than some disjointed information you find on the USDA website, maybe on a country website, on a third addendum paper. So the information's all over the place. But what we give the practice is also a way to show their clients what the process entails and to get them involved in the process and understanding the dynamics of travel and that you can do everything correctly and still not be able to travel if your pet is sick. So that's also the other side of it. So that's how we work with their clients.
Okay. So with that, veterinarians are amazing at doing things for free. So I can see that. So whenever I was in the practice where someone comes in and says, "Hey, I need rabies vaccine because I'm going to X. I need all the paperwork." And then if there is a person who knows how to do it, or number of people how to do it, everybody goes, "Oh no, now I have to deal with this. I have the full day, and then now this is going to happen. It's going to take out an hour or two out of my time, and then we're doing it for free." How do you convince the practices that not only you're solving, they will see definitely, I can see immediately. I want to know how you do it, by the way, in our practices. But how do you tell them you should be charging for this because you're charging them, so they need to know how to actually mark it up? So is it difficult? Have you found it being difficult?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It used to be a very simple process. And so it was like one form and really not that complicated, but you hit the nail on the head. Practices aren't charging appropriately. They're also seeing this as not that important of a service, in the sense that it's not really medical, right? It's not surgical, it's not all of those things. So, yes, that's what we're finding. And doctors are doing this work. Really, the only thing the doctor should have to do is that exam and certification of health. But that is what we're seeing. So, with doctor time, of course, they can't charge enough, right? If it takes you an hour, what's your doctor's hourly rate? It might get too expensive. And that's why Passpaw was designed like as it is in my practice. It's the team that handles all of it, except two things. The doctor meets with the client in the beginning, with a travel consultation, which is what we recommend to practices. And the point of that consultation is about the pet's health. So really, we've approached it as a health conversation. We review the health, we talk about vaccinations, we say, okay, where are you going? Maybe you're not on heartworm prevention. It's very low prevalence here, but is that a concern where you're going? Okay, you've never had lepto. It may not be a country requirement, but maybe it's a good idea for what you're going to be doing. So the doctor focuses on the health lifestyle part of it. The team then focuses on, do you have a microchip? We'll tell the doctor, okay, their rabies is good to go based on the requirements. The second visit is just to say, is the pet healthy to travel and to sign off on that health certificate? So that's really how we've approached it. Client focusing on health. Yes, they're going to travel, but we treat it as a health service in our practice. And that's what we've been trying to educate practices to do.
I love it.
So I assume that the business proposition here is that you would know most of the countries that people may travel to, and you know all the recommendations and requirements and what they require for it. In your experience, from the countries that you've now covered, what is the weirdest or the most difficult requirement that you've seen on a particular country that you were like, are they crazy? Why are they doing this?
So for me, it's South Africa and Jamaica want a Babesia test from the United States. And I'm think to myself, I don't know all the medicine of that, but I'm just like, why are they looking for that from the United States?
It's now measles, actually. Measles is the one that they require for.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. They've got so many requirements. And then I was like, I think I just don't know why they apply to our country, and it makes it. I'll say Jamaica. Why Jamaica? Because it's close to the United States, and their requirements are just as strict as South Africa, for example. Or I'll put them in with New Zealand and Australia, but you can tell that in certain parts of our country we have traffic of people wanting to go back and forth from Jamaica. So that one sticks in my head because it surprised me that it was so complicated.
Yeah, it's so cool. The one thing that I said before I even asked this question, I said I love it. And I love it for one reason. My business, we're helping people generate medical records with their voice, and so we're freeing up technician time so that they can do more meaningful work. And there's so much more meaningful work. And so this is one of these pieces of meaningful work, like your care team can go off and do this work, make a high hourly rate, add value to the bottom line, and then you're really optimizing with software the doctor's time, creating potentially more revenue, whether it's for other things that come up through that conversation. So I think it's just really, really amazing because every practice out there right now, no matter corporate, independent, would love to add to the bottom line. And this is a way to do it. So I think it's really, really quite cool.
As they'd say, from your mouth to God's ears. Exactly. And so I have found that conversation to be a little challenging when doctors tell me, oh no, I let my accreditation lapse, letting that opportunity go. In my practice, actually, it's the CSRs that are leading the charge.
Even better.
Exactly. And our teams want to feel valued. And one of the ways we make them feel valued is by trusting them in patient and client care. That is something I deeply believe. And so, yes, it's not worth the doctor's time. I can agree to that. But that doesn't mean that you don't have team members that can help support your practice by generating that revenue for you.
Allowing people to contribute at the highest level that they're possible, it makes people feel empowered, makes people feel trusted, and even better, it adds to the bottom line of the business. Super cool.
Absolutely, 100%.
This is interesting because there's a lot of companies that claim optimizing workflow and reducing time. And so did I when I ran SmartFlow. And I think we did. There's very little software or products that I truly believe do that. I think that scribing, the niche that Sean is in, is definitely improved my quality of life by using the scribe software. And then this particular process, as we speak, this is such a pain in the ass to do it when you're coming into when the client comes in to do that. So I'm so glad that you're doing this, but would be, I think, difficult. And I wonder if you're facing this. How do you price that? How do you price it to the veterinarian? Because they probably don't have numbers how many people come in for that. And then I assume your subscription, and if it's not a secret, what do you charge them?
It's not a secret. Actually, being that I'm in the practice, I am tired. I think even as a consumer, I'm tired of subscriptions. And we are aware this is seasonal and that everybody's volume is different. So we actually do charge per pet application. So just like you charge per like pet exam, treatments, that's the other thing. Besides the revenue from the certifications at the exam, there are a lot of treatments that come from that, but it is per pet. So a practice, regardless of the size. Now, do we offer a subscription if you're high volume to, yes, there is that option, but we really have tried to make it accessible to all practices to be able to get in there and comfortably be able to provide that service to their clients. The trend is going up. And I mean, I know every company will find the statistics to support what they're doing, but we can't deny that the human animal bond has changed. I've been in the field long enough, and you guys, know it has changed. I mean, I remember when flea medications didn't exist. And so it has changed. And now pet parents are taking their pets with them. They are living their life, whether it's at home, whether it's wherever they're going. And a lot of times I think people overlook certain demographics. You have students, international students. When they go home, they're not boarding their pet for 2 months. Military. You have people relocating. People from other countries when they go back home. If they're going back home for 2 weeks, they're taking their pet with them. So boarding is not cheap, but besides that, there is the stress and anxiety of leaving your pet behind. So it's happening. And so the work doesn't go away. It just gets displaced from practice A to practice B.
One of the things that it was in a different project, but I had this idea, and I don't know, maybe someone is doing this. Maybe I can sell you this idea for free. I think you have a great opportunity to have a pet travel insurance with it because that doesn't exist. You're directly connected to the customer that's traveling. So serving them with a pet insurance for travel, if anything happens overseas, might be a pretty cool combined business.
Actually, that's a fantastic idea.
You're welcome.
I get health insurance when I travel, and
There you go.
I love it. That's the thing. Sometimes you get entrenched. Your head is down for months and months. So that becomes. I appreciate that idea. I'll be honest. When we started, I thought everybody was just going to jump on and oh, finally, here's a problem. Here's a solution. Done.
Everybody's entrepreneur dream.
Yeah, I know.
Will they come and they don't.
And but I have to remember, I am not afraid of technology. And what you said about, yes, the promising of workflows and making that better, you're absolutely right. I won't disagree with that. But I get baffled is when you don't have a workflow. And so now you gain that workflow, the training is built in. So that is the part I am still trying to wrap my head around. I've always been on one side of the industry. So it is very different on the other side. It's just different. And now I understand when they say, talk to your reps, learn from your reps, because I always did that and I didn't understand why they keep saying that. So ultimately, I want to help, really. I think my partners know that if I could, I'd just give this all away for free, but then we couldn't survive. But that's it. I really believe in the human animal bond. I believe that this is an important component of client service. And so I think it's important that we be able to offer this service confidently, just like we do with everything else we do in our practices.
I think it's amazing. So good luck. I've got a couple of questions. We've run out of time. First, people want to find you and they're interested in the service. This is a quick one. How do they do that?
Passpaw.com. So think of passport, but passpaw.com.
That's easy enough. I think people can get it. We'll link it in the show notes. The next question is a YouTube, a book, a TED Talk, something you found interesting and inspiring that you want to share with our guests.
So I have revisited The Culture Map, which is great. It talks about how different cultures, that I'm really enjoying, again, by Aaron Meyer. I love Freakonomics. So the last one that I heard about Trader Joe's, I also love Trader Joe's. And I feel like we could always learn from outside of our industry. So a lot of my learning is from outside. And then Adam Grant, anything Adam Grant puts out, I love his material. So his TED Talk, his books, just getting us to think again. That's the title of one of his books, just to rethink and stay fresh and see how we can be out there to help.
Perfect. The last question that we always ask, is there another innovator in this industry that you think would be interesting to invite on this podcast?
So Grace Ursary is a friend of mine. I always butcher her last name, vet money geek. And so I think maybe because we talk about revenue and what's going on in our economy. So she's always been very insightful. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand. What's happening now? How do we keep our revenue? How do we keep clients happy? I remember the 2008 to 2012 situation. So I think she's somebody people should be paying attention to and her insights.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryin.podcast.com. See you next week.